Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Madie Riley. I'm the communications director here at Boostlingo. We are going to get started as soon as we can. We're just going to let people file in. I'm going to launch a poll real quick, and if you will fill that out for us, it helps us to know who's in the room and kind of tailor our advice and what we're going to talk about today to the audience. Awesome. Okay, well, good morning, Trish. Good morning, Mary. I'm excited for this one.
Good morning.
I feel like this is one of those ones that we've been looking forward to for so long that it's kind of weird that it's finally here. It means the end of the year is approaching.
Yeah,
Time is,
totally.
I can't believe we're already, what is it, Thanksgiving next week. I hope are you guys hosting?
Yeah, I am driving to New Mexico. I'm from Carlsbad, New Mexico, and so I'm driving to go see the caverns next week. And so, yeah, it'll be good. But I cannot believe somebody said, yeah, we'll have to wait till next year. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so far. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's 6 weeks away. That's nuts. So yeah, excited. Awesome. So we have 94% of people, 100% of people voted. Wow, what a great audience. 100% of people voting. I'm so proud. If I had
Nice.
gold stars,
Love
I
it.
would be giving them out. And so it looks like we are at about 40% non-single operators. We're about 40% 1 to 2 people, and then we're at 19% 3 to 5, and 6% 5 or more. So it looks like we're skewed towards pretty small operating for marketing, and then we have a couple of people who have a little bit larger operations. So awesome. Thank you so much for responding. Let's do a time check. It is 10:03, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot
Yeah,
to cover today, and I actually
yeah.
think we have more to cover than we probably have time for today. But we will be doing a part two, and we will also be sending out this presentation after the fact. It has some good links in there for you guys to dig into and a lot more text than we'll be able to go over today. So let's dive in. Okay. All right, Trish, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, all right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Trish, Director of Account Management here at Boostlingo. Been over here for about 5 years now, and so have seen all various sizes of LSPs, so I'm really excited to get into the weeds with marketing today. I will pass it over to Mary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trish. I am Maria Garcia. I'm from Italy, where I joined Boostlingo back in 2018 now. So it's almost like 5 years. It's been a while. And yeah, I basically started from scratch at Boostlingo. Now I'm the director of digital marketing, and I'm very happy to be here so I can share with you guys everything that I've learned here at Boostlingo, what I've done as the first step in the marketing field. And yeah, I really look forward to that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I am super honored to be joined by these veterans. Trish and Mary are two of our longest standing employees, so they have so much knowledge to bring here. I am Madie Riley. I am the comms director here. I have done freelance marketing, consulting, basically everything that you can think of for small businesses, medium businesses, nonprofits. And so I'm really excited to take some of that experience and apply it to this field. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
One question for you, Mary. I still can see the quick poll. I don't know if you guys can see the screen. I'm not seeing the presentation anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I was going to say, how am I going to follow along?
Okay. So Trish as well. Okay.
Okay,
It's not
no,
just
good
me.
job. Let me close the
Okay.
poll. Are we seeing the
Okay.
screen now? Okay,
Perfect.
awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for calling that out. I
Yeah, no
am
problem.
like the first person to admit that GoToWebinar every single time that I hop into it. I am not nervous at all about public speaking, but go to webinar. I'm nervous about. So thank you guys so much. Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump in. So we're talking today about marketing funnel, right? And we're talking about making a plan for marketing, right? So a lot of the advice that we have today is first step advice versus fine tuning. And so we would love to hear your questions. Trish will be monitoring the whole time. So, we will try and get to as many as we can during this presentation, and then we will also be responding via email. So let's talk about a marketing funnel, right? So for a lot of you, this is probably something that you've seen before. Whenever we move through the marketing funnel, we think of awareness, consideration, purchase, loyalty, and advocacy. And I like to give kind of a hands-on demonstration of what each of these things mean. So if you're thinking about awareness, they've never heard about your company before, or they might not even know that the service exists, right? And so that's probably going to be true for a lot of people whenever you think about virtual interpretation or even just interpretation services. And so examples of that are direct mail campaigns, right? You just pick an address book and grab every dentist in your area, right? And so you send that mail blanketed out to them. You have paid ads that are just going to an entire industry. So you're not focusing on anybody that you've spoken to before. You're just going to go ahead and hit your target profile. You can have ads in local papers and dance programs, anything that basically you're not doing a super targeted reach towards people who've heard about you before, but you're trying to get your name out there. And then we have consideration, which consideration means they've heard about you, they're thinking about moving forward with the product. And so now we want to give them a little bit more meat on the bone, right? So we have thought leadership posts, things where people come. Some of you guys have seen those on our website on Boostlingo. You come and you look at our advice for LSCs and you think to yourself, maybe they understand my business, maybe they understand the industry, right? And then also the same thing with paid ads. You can start getting to where you're thinking about like multilingual for us is for LSCs, right? And if you subscribe to Multilingual, it's a publication that's for the language industry. Whenever you think about who's reading that, they're people who really understand the industry, are nerdy about the industry, right? And so we start targeting them with that consideration material. And then purchase marketing materials, that's where we just make it really easy for people to get in contact with sales. I would consider the purchase kind of the flashpoint where we move them from maybe not in contact with us over to contact with us, right? So one-sheeters that a salesperson can send out, things that are going to help them during the demo process, forms for us to collect their information. That's the purchase marketing materials. Awesome.
So I guess I can give some examples. So I actually have a t-shirt on from Boostlingo, which is a perfect example of marketing and putting your name out there. I also have a really cool LSP that I've worked with in the past where he's actually sent us over some really cool mugs. So it's pretty I've seen some pretty creative ways to go ahead and get their brand out there. I think something even as small as, I think one year I seen someone send over a pie to Boostlingo and I was like, that's
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah,
Oh, that was
honestly, like
amazing.
what positive brand recognition. Like if I associate your brand with somebody who has fed me pie in my life, like 100% I love your brand. I'm gonna buy it from you all the time. That's awesome. So
absolutely, yeah. And I guess what this kind of looks familiar of like a sales funnel, just kind of looking at this example here, because what's the difference between this one and let's say a sales funnel, for example?
yeah, it's a great question. So you are going to have a lot of overlap. We will dive into kind of the difference. And if you are somebody who joined us on our sales webinar, you might even recognize our sales funnel. What I think of as the main difference is that sales, once they make the sale, they have to move on, right? They're going on to the next client. Whereas marketing, we really want to cultivate those relationships and turn the people who are customers into advocates for us, right? And so loyalty materials and advocacy materials are part of creating that loyalty. And for us, that can include customer newsletters, which we send out monthly, and then informational webinars like we're doing right now, right? So high value. We don't want anything out of you. We just want to give you the information that you need. And then I was thinking about the huge bright orange cup that Bobby sent to me. I have it in the other room from Spoken Here, but that kind of stuff where it's like a heart, you feel a little warm and fuzzy whenever you get it from that brand. And then advocacy materials. This is really, if you're going to invest money in something you haven't done before, advocacy materials are so crucial to growing a business. 84% of business to business buyers start the buying process with a referral. And I know, Trish, we've seen this with leads coming into us. We have a huge portion of people who sign up with us that are word of mouth, right? And so if you can give them the customer referral program, video testimonials, anything that shows that you have happy customers and those customers can speak to potential buyers, that's going to be a really powerful tool for your team. And Trish, I'd actually like you to talk about our Luminary program. Kind of how did we start that? How long has it been going on? And what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So we started the Luminary program probably a little bit post last year. And a big part of it is actually reaching out to our customers, and your best sellers are your customers, right? And then putting out your name and kind of referring you. And so we started that, yeah, like I mentioned, about a year ago. And what we've developed is kind of creating boost bucks behind it. And the essence behind it is, like I mentioned earlier, customers love to speak about the goodness and how much they like you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really trust somebody who is a peer in your industry, right? Because they're trying to do the same thing that you are. And so if you hear that they've had success, it's going to be a really powerful marketing tool for sure. And this is a really big nerdy slide. I am not going to dive all the way into this because it's just pretty hard to communicate math over a webinar, but we will be sending this out, right? And I know, Trish, something that you had mentioned is just a common question is, how do I know how much to spend on marketing? And so the US Business Administration, Small Business Administration says 7 to 8% of your budget, right? And so that's a really good goalpost for small businesses. So if you are one of those single operators or somebody that has 1 or 2 people on your marketing team, that's a really good goal for you, right? The tricky part starts happening whenever you get past maybe that small business mindset where you're just kind of doing a little bit of growth at a time. And when you get into those larger leaps where you're trying to double your revenue in a year or triple your revenue in a year, so that's whenever you can start using these calculations. And so one thing I did want to point out with this is if you're looking at the math, you can see that you have a deal that is a monthly recurring revenue of $500, right? And you do all the math and you get down to your Google Ads budget and it's $5,000 to acquire that one deal that's worth $500, right? And so it can look like it doesn't add up. But you have to think of the lifetime value of your client, right? Whenever we think about lifetime value, say that your clients on average stay with you for 2 years, right? And so that client is actually going to be worth 500 times 24, right? So you're actually spending $5,000 to get $12,000 of revenue over the lifetime of the client. So that, I just wanted to point that out because I know that can be a little bit sticky when you're looking at this and the math can seem unbalanced. But if you want to go through this after we send the presentation to you, I pulled basically the average cost per lead, which is different than cost per click. These are people who are actually going to make it into your sales funnel. So I pulled those for Google Ads and I pulled that for LinkedIn ads, which are 2 really easy platforms to get started with on paid ads. But there are other places that you can advertise and they will always have a cost per lead out there. The only time that you might not be able to find a cost per lead super easily, but you can find goalposts, is if you are advertising with somebody like a local newspaper or a local newsletter or business newsletter, right? Some of those aren't going to have really in-depth studies on them just because there's not a huge volume of people. But you can look up the cost per lead for a local newspaper in general, right? And those are really good numbers to insert into this. Mary, do you have anything to add to these really complicated calculations?
No. You said pretty much everything. Like, yeah, don't be super, afraid of this kind of budget. This is just an example. And yeah, as Madie mentioned, every single, cost per click based on your industry is different. So you can have even a lower budget. And then, as I'm going to mention later, you need to start from somewhere, even with a small budget, and then do some tests so you can really understand how your audience it's gonna react to your campaigns, and then based on that you can reassess the budget. But yeah, we can check it out later in the presentation. But yeah, you said everything. Thank you, Madie.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we're going to talk about throughout the presentation as well. But one of the advantages of having really great marketing is that you can actually increase conversion rates. So as you increase that conversion rate, your cost per lead is going to go down, right? And so what you want to focus on if you're going into paid ads is basically performing above average, because anytime you get above that average, it's going to lower how much you have to spend to get quality leads into the door. Awesome. And another part of creating that plan and getting those quality leads in the door is picking an industry. And this is something that I think that people feel is a little bit counterintuitive, right? It's a target one industry at a time. The conventional wisdom maybe feels like it should be cast as wide a net as possible, right? And while casting as wide a net as possible might be okay in something like direct sales, because you might just get lucky, it's a volume game, right? When you're paying for ads and when you're paying for marketing versus just sending an email that goes out to a lot of people, you really have to be as effective as you can with your budget. And so that means whenever you start tackling marketing, you have to think about really specific messages. And so we all know, if you think about the things that you actually click on LinkedIn, or you click on Google, or you stop to read over an ad at a magazine, it's things that feel like they were written for somebody just like you, right? So these tailor-made ideas are really going to resonate with prospects for marketing. And so once you have that industry picked, you can understand your expertise, right? And one thing that Trish and I talked about is, okay, say that you're a medical interpreting practice with Spanish to English. That's what you focus on, right? And so you can look for those kind of customers. But Trish, I'd like to know what other kinds of expertise you can kind of build these industry targets around.
Yeah, my best advice I always like to give a lot of language service providers is go local, right? The important part about you being a small business is that you have those closer bonds, right? You're not this big organization coming into a place where people are like, I don't know this person very well, where you can cherish those relationships. Another part is actually just know what you know and if you're already like refined in medical or education, start there, perfect it, and then wash, rinse, repeat. But a big part of it is just knowing what your customers you're already working with today, and then kind of focusing that as your pivotal point.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the go local point, because there are also a lot of ways to take advantage of local marketing and local events, because that's going to be cheaper a lot of the times to break through the noise in a local setting versus trying to break through the noise in a global setting, right? And it also helps you to build ties to the community, which usually leads to longer contracts and better word of mouth. And so I love the local focus. And something else, or I have all of these factors that can influence your choice as well. You got to think about, hey, is this going to be a really competitive market for me to get into? Am I going to have to pay a lot of money to break into it? So if you think of something like healthcare, there's going to be a lot of providers competing against you, especially at like the hospital space where there's large contracts, right? And especially if you're going after RFPs or anything where the waters are just pretty chummy at this point, right? And so one of the other advantages of local is that it helps you to whittle down that market to where you're really focusing on maybe a market that's not saturated and you're not competing against as many names. Awesome, and I am going to kick it over to Mary, because she's going to talk about the industry. I've talked about the industry, and now Mary's going to talk about buyer's persona.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Madie. So yeah, once you have identified your industry, another thing that you need to think about is your buyer's persona. But first of all, what is a buyer persona? A buyer persona is specifically a detailed description of someone that represents your target. And in the same industry, you might have different buyer persona based on the demographic, details, or even the job description, or even the value that they give to the industry, and also the spending power. So you need to think about all these different things in order to create a buyer persona. And why do you need that? You need that because it helps you to align all the work that you as being done inside your business and being focused on your marketing efforts just on qualified prospects, because in the same industry you might have different type of prospects, but some of them might be more qualified than others. So you need to understand, their needs, what they're looking for, and based on that, this the creation of the buyer persona can help you, to target them. And another thing that really helps you by creating a buyer persona is to help you structure your marketing strategy in a more concrete way, because you really need to understand every single step that you're gonna do, on your channels, on your communication. So by creating this, you're really going to have a specific, concrete way for making action of your marketing plan. And the last thing is that you are going to see the perspective of your clients, because sometimes someone that is being focused on the business, you're just seeing your seller points and you're not, thinking about what they're looking for, their perspective, what are the questions they're asking for whenever they're seeking for a business or a service. So by creating a buyer persona, you really you like to have to be on their perspective, and that is very helpful. So what kind of stuff you need to take in order to create this buyer persona? So first of all, you need to collect the professional info. And by professional info, we mean everything that is related, the name, the demographic information, job title, or even the objective, goals, difficulties. By defining these, you really understand how you can propose your message, how you can drive your message to them. And another thing that you need to be focused on is also the values and goals, because by identifying them, you can give them, your proposition, everything that you're providing with your service, so all your features and solution can be shared with them by, by knowing all what they're looking for and the goals that they have. And then the last step that you need to take is the discovery phase. This phase is very critical because it really puts you in a place where you're going to analyze the question. As I mentioned earlier, you really need to be focused on the question that the clients are asking whenever they're looking for a service. By knowing them, you can really understand how you're going to answer to this question with your service and your business. So this is the most important phase in my opinion. And every time that you are going to pull down all the questions related to your buyer persona, you really going to be, more easily find your answer to them with your business. For example, what kind of content can help them? Like maybe I need to create an industry statistic or product information. Or another question can be, what question do they ask whenever they're seeking solution to any interpreting challenges? That's another type of question. But yeah, by finding out all the question of your prospect, it helps you, to find any solution that you can provide.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
is
love
there anything you want to add, Madie or Trish?
I
no.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, any examples of like, especially coming into a space of on-demand services, like what are some of the major things that you guys see that is super helpful from a marketing perspective?
You want to go ahead, Madie?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, for buying personas, we really focus on how much they're going to know coming into it, right? Which is what really helps with the buyer's personas too, is like you come into it, okay, they're going to likely come in at the awareness phase, right? And so knowing how much market education you need to do for those buyers personas is important. And then you can also, like Mary said, help you understand how much time they have, right? So if you're talking to chief nursing officers, right, you want to move into the healthcare space, you probably aren't going to be super successful with webinars, right? They have just limited time to devote to those kinds of things. And if they are going to devote that time, it's usually going to be a webinar from, say, the American Medical Association, somebody who's a trusted advisor. And so it helps you to really clarify what you need to spend your time on, right? And especially for those shops that have minimal staff. And whenever I came on, it was only Mary and I. So we operated as the staff too. It really helped us pick the things that we wanted to do first, right? Just based on our wingspan. And so I think that's a really important part of the buying persona too.
Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to add, it helps us also to unify the communication on our channels, because we have different channels that we are using, you know, for reaching out the audience, like LinkedIn or Facebook, or even, you know, Google Ads, or even our website. Sometimes we create a new landing page for a specific, you know, target. And by having a specific buyer persona in a specific moment, it helps us to, you know, unify the message out there. For every single, you know, buyer persona that you want to reach out in a specific time frame.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And we didn't really touch on this earlier whenever I was looking at the calculations page, but um, I think an important part of this too is knowing how to pick your buyer personas that you want to focus on. And there's a few different ways that you can make this decision. Historical customer data is very important, right? If you have a type of client that you have a really high likelihood of closing, or historically they've been a really high revenue generating type of industry, right? That can really help you pick who you want to focus in on. And so whenever we think about, you know, LSPs for us, right? That's our industry. And then we think about buyer's persona. What I like to do is focus in on, okay, who is our contact in our highest closing opportunities? And a lot of times it's going to be an owner operator, right? And so that's going to be the buyer persona that we focus in on. So you could use that kind of historical data and analysis to make these choices. And if you're moving into a new industry, you know, just figuring out who's online can be really helpful. But there's a lot of data about who is the decision maker in different industries. And so that I think you really want to dive into when you're choosing these as well.
Yeah, totally. So let's move on. Yeah, on what is search engine optimization. So I really think that everybody knows what is Google. Every time that you're looking for something, you're going on Google and search for that thing. And for your business, really helpful to be on that first page of Google. Every time that you're looking for something, on your first result, you're gonna see, you know, some businesses, and those are paid ads. But below them, you can see all the organic search. So every time that you're looking for something, you want to be on the first page. So, and why? So the search engine optimization is a way to show to your clients or audience your business without paying anything, like without paying for any ads. And that's a really good way, you know, to target all the unpaid organic traffic, and also give them information about your business on Google, because we know that like 80% of people that needs to find out about anything are starting the research on Google. So that's a really good way for you, you know, to be find out by your clients. And how you can do that, like to optimize the SEO of your website, that's the really small step that you need to take on. If you go on the next slide, Madie, I'm going to show them the step that you need to take in order to optimize the SEO. So the SEO, basically, you need to start from the content. So one of the things that you need to be focused on for your website is to create original content. By original content, I mean text. So all the text that you can add on your website, where you can explain your business, that would be great. But also images and videos, because a lot of people don't really know that even an image or video is really helpful, because Google can track also the videos and images on your website. So every time that you're adding anything of those, please add a specific description so Google can track those and show them into the search page of Google whenever someone is looking for that type of service. So that's something that is really helpful. And again, be original, something that why your business is unique, is different from your competitor. That's something that is really helpful for Google. and also help you to be ranked on your first page. And then the other thing is backlinking. Backlinking is basically a strategy where you can add your website into other website. So every time that someone is landing on your website from other website, it gives you authority to your website. So every citation or blog post that you can share with our website, with the URL of your website, that would be great, because for Google, it gives you a lot of authority and recognition in your industry. So that's something that also we are being focused on. So if you can do partnership with your clients or other stakeholder of the industry, that would be great and really helpful for your business and website. And then the last thing is being focused on the keywords research. By keywords, I mean all the words that people are typing into the Google search. So you need to understand what kind of words your audience is typing whenever it's looking for your type of service. And once you have identified that, you can be working on the content based on your keywords. So let's say that you want to provide video remote interpretation or even language remote interpretation. If you think that those words are really important to your audience, being focused on those words for your content, create an original content based on those, and post them on your website. So that's something that is really helpful. And yeah, I know that on this slide, there are a lot of information. Don't worry, we're gonna send you out this presentation to you so you can check it out. But those are, the basics for you to optimize the SEO of your website. And basically, that was the first thing that I've done at Boostlingo when we had no investment at that time for the marketing. I've started from there, like creating a buyer persona and also being focused on the SEO of the website. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, Trish, something that helps with this local, whenever you think about this from like a local perspective and thinking of yourself as a local provider, it really can help with your SEO plan as well, right? Because it can give you that unique content, right? So say you're an Austin language service provider, right? So you're going to frame everything that you write on your website about being an Austin language service provider working in the Austin community. That's going to be unique. And then whenever you think about backlinks, one of the easy ways that you can get backlinks is by having a profile, a company profile on different organizations' pages, right? So if you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, right? If you're a paying member of something like the American Translators Association or even the American Language Companies, that can help you as well because you just have your website link there, right? And so that's going to help you. Those pages usually already have some built-in authority because of the way that they operate. And so being listed on their website is going to be a really big boost. And then it also helps you in the keyword research because you're breaking through with that phrase.
So I do have one question too. So from the chat is who on my staff actually needs to learn about SEO? So I'm assuming this is probably from an owner and they probably don't have a big staff. Who would actually need to learn this type of information?
So, I mean, when I started at Boostlingo, I was the one that was trying to learn from, the businesses and the audience. But one thing that I can suggest you, because I know that it takes some time, to understand what kind of keywords they need to be focused on, how you can build a really good content. So one advice that we usually give to our clients to find for a freelancer that can is being, specialized on the SEO, because there are a lot of people out there that are really, specialized on this industry, and they can really help you, to optimize and have more tricks that help your business, to be ranked on your first pages. So that's something that I can suggest to them. I don't know, Madie, if you have anything else.
No, I think that's a great point. I think a freelancer for a lot of people is going to be the answer, right? Especially if you have limited staff. And freelancers they can be pretty budget friendly, especially if you think of something like offering an internship to a
Mm,
college grad in your area. It's a great way to get that. And then also, the advantage of working with the same freelancer over and over is that they'll get to know your site, and they also will give you better rates if you're booking them for larger hours blocks of time, right? And so
mhm.
those are a couple of tricks to kind of drive this cost down. But I would suggest that anybody who is the owner, operator in that C-suite, wants to be in the C-suite someday, that learning just the basics of SEO is really important, because you can monitor progress if you really understand the mechanics
Yeah.
underneath, right? And so it's a really good way to make sure that no one's pulling the wool over your eyes, is if you at least, know the basics.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, once you have identified your buyer persona, you have optimized your website as much as you can. Now you can think about a small investment on paid ads. So I'm giving you two reasons that why your business needs paid ads. So first of all, it gives you the ability to target your audience, because websites like LinkedIn or even Google have access to a lot of data, and this means that they have the ability to put your ads in front of the right audience. So that's a really good way, to target your specific buyer persona. And yeah, by having, a paid ad, as I mentioned earlier, on Google, for example, you can be ranked at your first page as the first result, even with a small amount of budget. And then another thing that gave you um, that is viewed as a really good point for paid ad is the access to powerful analytics, because once you have created a really good SEO strategy and started a paid ad, it's really important to understand all the data behind the campaigns. And resources like LinkedIn or Google give you a lot of analytics, give you geographical information of your audience that are clicking on your ads, or even the device that are using while they're looking for, your business. That gives you a lot of information on how you can, drive your message, what is the right channel, the right time, even the time. Like, this is very important. I remember the first time when I started the paid ad at Boostlingo, I realized, like, I didn't realize that there was a time frame, a long time frame in US, like from West Coast to East Coast. So I put it, the ad just for a short amount of time that was not working at that time. So I increased the time frame. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm reaching the whole audience and that we are looking for. And that is something that you can see, with the analytics of your paid ad. And also they can reach the audience where they are. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, 81% of people are looking for something, and they started doing that on Google. So every time that someone is looking for something, you can be found on Google. So that's something that is really, really important for you. And I'm going to show you also 3 small steps where you can start from whenever you want to start a paid ad. So first of all, you need to set your goals. So you may need just, traffic on your website. Maybe this is the first time that you're starting a campaign. So your goal might be just a visit to your website. So that's something that you need, to think about in order to create a whole campaigns. Or maybe it can be getting some leads on your landing pages. That's another type of goals that you need to think about. It depends on what kind of, on the marketing funnel you are. Like, if you are on the brand awareness step, maybe you just need more traffic on your website just to grow your brand awareness. But if you are on the second step, maybe you need some leads. So that's another type of goals that you need to be focused on. And then once you have done that, you need to set your goals. As Madie mentioned earlier, it's really important to understand how much you need to spend. And again, you don't need like absolutely 5K for your business, but you can start with a small budget based on your business, MRR of your business, and based on the industry. Make some research of the type of cost per click, or even the cost based on your industry on Google. And based on that, you can understand how much you're going to spend on your Google ads. And then once you have done that, you need to do a lot of tests. This is the first step, and this is a very important step because a lot of people don't really think about like how much valuable is doing A/B testing. So every time that you start in a campaign, please do some tests, maybe by changing a call to action, a single word on that campaign that might be more helpful for you to drive the traffic on your website, or even getting a new lead. So those are the three small steps for getting started for paid campaigns for you.
That's awesome. And one thing that I think about always with the A/B testing, Mary, is translation versus interpretation.
Oh my God.
I think everybody here would love if nobody in the world ever referred to interpretation as translation again, but that is not going to happen, right? And so some of that A/B testing can include, okay, am I going to get translation? Am I going to get the right people in the door if I put translation, especially if you have translation as a service at your company? And so there's a lot of different small changes that you can make there. And one thing I did want to talk about too in regards to this is that Google has a lot of training on Google Ads, right? And you can start at a basic level, and they really do walk you through how much you need to bid and how many people in your, like what people in your industry are bidding. And so it is really user friendly. They make it as easy as they can for small businesses, right? And so you can probably get this started, and then as it gets more complex, you probably do need a Mary to run more of these kinds of campaigns. So there are definitely options there. And as far as Google versus LinkedIn ads, which one is the choice, right? We saw earlier that Google has a higher cost per lead and that LinkedIn's a little bit lower, but there are some caveats there, right? Not every industry is going to be on LinkedIn, right? And so if you're mostly focusing on business to business, so you're thinking about yourself as more of a professional service and you're not doing maybe the one-offs, you want to have a contract with somebody, you want to have those monthly subscriptions, then LinkedIn, they might be there, right? But if you want to do a business to consumer, right, they might not necessarily be on LinkedIn. And so you have to think about where your audience is, and that actually segues really well into what we'll talk about next. But Trish, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question that came in. It says it only takes about 30 minutes max to think of a personal post. Why would I need to hire someone specifically to actually take care of this?
Well, one, ow. Two, I understand, and I get this question a lot. I actually consult with a lot of nonprofits, and so the budget is limited, and I totally get that, right? And so the way that I think about it is, if you see your friend once a week, you have tons of things to catch up on, right? So you have a lot of stories that happened. You have some smack talk to have from work. You have maybe your favorite meal from that week, right? You've collected all of these things. Whereas if you talk to them every day, maybe you start running out of things to talk about, and you have to start digging into like your childhood, right? And you start telling stories from college. And brands don't have childhood stories, and they don't have their college years behind them. And so the reason that you have a social media marketer is because you have to start filling in those gaps the more often that you're posting. And so social media marketers are going to be the ones who go in and they build that really interesting content for you. If you think about the things that you pause on, right, it's really good pictures where they show you the personality of the brand. It's really valuable white papers or case studies, or it's videos that teach you something, right? Those all take a lot of time to create, and they take a lot of expertise. And so even though it is a budget investment, if you really want to use social media marketing, you're going to have to either have somebody on staff who is in charge of your social media, or you can hire a freelancer. Very similar with your SEO, you want to hire somebody who's going to be consistently your provider. You don't want to go in between freelancers, because the more they know your brand, the faster they'll get at posting. And theoretically, the less hours they'll need to spend per post as they go with you for a while. And so I have a few starting blocks for you for social media marketing. You need to pick a channel. The everything everywhere all at once brand is not going to be something that is sustainable for most small businesses and even large businesses. It takes a lot of time, and you have different audiences on each channel, right? The people you're talking to on Facebook are not the same people you're talking to on LinkedIn, are not the same people you're talking to on Twitter, are not the same people you're talking to on TikTok. And every single one of those audiences needs their own message and needs to be talked to in their own specific way. So get a channel up and running. If you feel like you have it, then go ahead, move on to the next channel, right? And you can start adding these in over time. Another thing you need to do is post regularly. That's why you have a social media marketer, so that you have content to post constantly. Once a week to get started is great. If you're already posting once a week and you want to bump it up, 2 to 3 times a week is what you want to aim for. And then you have bonus posts where, if something pops up, you can post. But I say get to a place where you have 2 to 3 times a week is the ideal. And then I said this before, but hire a specialist. There are so many eyes on these channels, but there are also so many people trying to get those eyes on what they're posting, right? And so it takes expertise to break through that noise. It takes research. And so it's just going to be an investment that you have to do if you want to do it this way. If you just want to use your social media channel as a thing that exists and you don't really plan on marketing, then that's fine. But if you really want to use it as a channel where you could possibly get leads and new people in the door, you're going to have to treat it like a part of your business. So we've given you lots of tips, and we've given you lots of tricks, and we've given you lots of to-dos, and I'm sure that you are overwhelmed, and that's totally fine. Take it one bite at a time. But I do want to say there are really tactile ways for you to measure success. How do you know if these changes are working, right? Improved conversion rates, like we talked about earlier. That equation of how much it costs to acquire a new lead is really heavily dependent on your conversion rates. So you should see more sales conversions because you have the right people coming in through the door, less junk because you're reaching the right audiences, right? And so you're not going to be getting those junk emails. And then more qualified leads, right? The volume of the leads that you have coming in should go up as well. And then marketing source revenue. So there are a few ways to track this. If you are a more advanced user, you have 3 to 5 people, say that you have HubSpot, you really need to be using those UTM codes so that you can track where people came in, you can track which Google ad got their attention, you can see the exact journey they're taking on your website, and make sure that you have some reporting on that so that you can see not only how they're getting to your website, but who is closing and who is actually revenue generating, right? And so one thing that we're doing right now, and Mary is leading the charge on this, is we're looking even at our Google ads one by one, right? Which of these is a revenue generator? And then we can adjust from there to kind of cut the fat, right? If this guy brings in a lot of leads, but none of them ever close, right? Then it doesn't really matter that we're getting leads, right? We need to cut that out because it's probably the wrong people and they're not ever going to be a right fit for us. And if you don't have that sophisticated tracking software, it's totally fine. Honestly, I consider that an advanced user investment. It's not something that you really need to do in your first couple of years of getting marketing started until your needs just get more complex and you have a lot of channels that you're handling. So if you don't have that software, what you can do, it's really simple. Just include a how did you hear about us on your form whenever you're collecting people's information. And if they call into the sales line, just make it part of the process, either in sales or in onboarding, that you are collecting that as well. So how did you hear about us? You get the answer, you write it down, and you put that data all in one place, and you're looking at that report, right? And so that's how you can track over time if you're generating more marketing source revenue. And if you don't have that tracking, then you really aren't going to know what's working. So you have to have that tracking in order to really understand how you're getting revenue in through the door. And Mary, did you have something to say?
No. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, I didn't have anything to add to this.
Was it Trish?
I, I was gonna say I have another question.
Yeah, I heard an intake of breath.
I didn't want to cut you in. So it says, what about cost per clicks and KPIs that they hear about? And kind of like why isn't this that on this list here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I would consider cost per click and maybe like page views, time spent on a page, all of these optimization metrics is what I think of them as. Basically, that's where you're at the fine tuning process, and that's whenever you know something is working and you're just making small tweaks to make it even more efficient. What I think is more important whenever you're starting a marketing plan is actually measuring the revenue first. And so instead of thinking of your optimization metrics, just see if it's even working, right? So let's focus on, are we getting leads from LinkedIn that close? Are we getting leads from Google Ads that close? Are we getting leads from our website that close, right? And then once we identify that that's something that works, then we can start digging into, okay, this is working. What's our cost per click on these ads? And then you start fine tuning, right? So I consider that more of a secondary step, especially because you're going to have to get some more sophisticated software to measure those KPIs.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. And last but not least, the decreased cost per lead. So basically, like we have those formulas where your conversion rates are going down, it's going to help with the cost per lead. You should also start seeing just in general the cost per lead on average going down. For example, we had the LinkedIn average cost per lead for business services is $60, right? And that's an average over time, and that's going to collect from a bunch of different sources, right? And so you want to start seeing the lower end of average. So usually they'll post a range, and you want to start seeing that cost per lead start heading towards the lower end of the range, right? So you will see a little bit of movement if you're hitting the right audiences and you're choosing the right goals. And same thing on Google Ads. Mary, I know that you have seen this too. What do you think has really like moved the needle on cost per lead for us on Google Ad?
So basically, one of the things that I find out that is really, really helpful for my Google Ads is make your content, more consistent between the campaigns and your website. So every time that your keywords so you're bidding on a specific keyword, video remote interpretation, please be consistent to the content on your website that helps you to get a lower cost per lead for your campaigns, because give you, a higher quality of your campaigns, and that way means that you're gonna pay less for cost per click, and of course cost per lead as well. So that's something that is really helpful. So and as I mentioned earlier, it's really helpful, for you to understand the needs of your audience. The identification of your buyer persona is the tricky point. Like if you really understand, what they're looking for and their need, you're gonna be able to drive the right message, and that way also, you're gonna pay less for your ads as well.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And um, I think one of the things that is super tough to accept and implement, especially if you are somebody with a small amount of time on your hands. I know a lot of you guys are wearing every single hat, and so it can be really hard to accept, hey, I need to sit down and invest all of this time up front so that I can have more success down the road. What I will say is something that helps us is to kind of break this up into different meetings, different working sessions, right? So say I'm going to have 2 hours today where all I do is focus on looking at my historical customer data. Then another 2 hours where you focus on creating buyer personas from that data. Try and put it into bite-sized pieces so it's a little bit more manageable. And just understand that it is going to be a lot of prep work right at the beginning. Awesome. So we are doing great on time. We have another 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
get in touch with us. If you have questions, we would love to answer them for you, either on LinkedIn or shoot us an email. If we don't have specific answers from you, we'll try and dig into that. But yeah, we love helping you guys with whatever problems you have. And so, yeah, shoot them at us.
Awesome. Well, I definitely learned a lot today, and I appreciate you guys putting this all together. I guess to a last couple of questions to kind of button everything up. Do you have any recommendations on what we should choose for options as far as marketing firms? Do you have any recommendations that you can share?
Mary, do you want to take that one? I can too.
Yeah, maybe it's better for you because I'm in Italy, so here it's a little bit different. So that might
Yeah.
be a little confusing, but yeah, maybe it would be better for you.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things, right? So you can hire a freelancer through something like Fiverr. A lot of the times what they will say is like open up contracts versus projects, right? So if they are a project freelancer, they don't want to have an ongoing relationship with a company, and that's not going to be something they're open for versus a contract with your company where they do ongoing work. And then another option there is there are marketing firms that target small businesses that are built around a lower marketing budget. And so something that you want to think about whenever you're looking at those smaller firms is basically what kind of cost per hour are you going to be getting, right? Is it going to be lower than you would have to be a freelancer? And it should be if you're going to sign with one of these firms. And then also, what kind of commitments are they looking at and how do they measure success on your contract? So, 3 months from now, how are you guys going to evaluate the marketing together? What is their plan for tackling SEO, paid ads, these beginnings? So, you really just want to work with a small business marketing firm who is going to give you a devoted resource that really understands your business. And so, either a freelancer who you can work with on an ongoing basis, or a small business marketing firm where you have a dedicated resource.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
one thing that I can add to that is like having a marketing firm that is being specialized on your industry. That might be helpful because they already know, how the audience is gonna work, and that's something that can really help you, to get faster on your result. So that's something that might be helpful for you.
Yep, it's great
Sounds good.
advice.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that advice, and I think we have time for maybe one more question, if that's possible.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so how can I distinguish myself from other providers by my self-marketing? Like, how can I make myself stand out a little bit further than other providers that are out on the market?
So one
Mary,
thing
go
that,
for it.
yeah, sure. So basically, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, but this is something really important for a business that is starting out with a marketing strategy, is to understand what our and your competitors are doing. So every time that you're starting out, a new marketing strategy, please check out your competitors so you can really understand what a proposition is, and understand how you can drive your message in a better way, and trying to reach the audience that your competitor are not reaching out. So that's something that with a good marketing strategy can really help you. And then, oh yeah, by analyzing all the data that you have gotten from your marketing campaign. So every time that you started a campaign, please check out all your data so you can better understand how you can assess and adjust your campaigns and do better the next time. But I don't know, Maddie, if you have anything else that you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, those are great points. Figuring out the gap that your competitors have and questions that they're answering is a really great way to formulate what you want to tackle. And then also, I think something that can really help you stand out is a personal touch. I think we are in a generation that likes people to be associated with brands versus just having a random brand that doesn't really have a personality or doesn't have any sort of feeling to it. And so one thing that I always like to do for new businesses that I'm working with is I give them a survey where I say, okay, if, for example, I did this at Boostlingo. I said, if Boostlingo were a person, what would they be like, right? And then you have, I will link to this in our notes today, but there's a really good basis where you kind of decide, are you serious? Are you funny? Are you reverent? Are you
Mhm.
irreverent? And so if you have everybody in your company answer that, or if you answer that, if you're a single shop, you can start thinking of your company as having its own personality, and that will really help you stand out online and in your marketing, because if they feel like they're hearing from a person, you write in first person from executives on your team, it's really going to help you stand out, because people work with people. And so if you can put people at the front of your marketing, it's going to be a lot more successful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it is 11:01, so we will let everybody get back to their
Mhm.
days. But Mary and Trish, thank you so much for
Oh, thank you.
doing
Yeah, it
this.
was great. Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully, it was helpful for everybody.
Yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. Well, like we've been saying, we will send this presentation to you. I will include a link to that quiz that I just talked about. And we hope that you get some great information out of it. And best of luck to those of you who are taking this on. It's a big project, and I'm excited for you. Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.